Tesla's cutting-edge technology has pushed the boundaries of innovation, but sometimes those boundaries come at a deadly cost. In this video, we're diving into the 5 most disturbing Tesla deaths ever recorded, from eerie autopilot failures to chilling crashes. These stories will leave you questioning just how safe self-driving cars really are. Viewer discretion is advised. It seemed like just another sunny Florida day for 40-year-old Joshua Brown. The skies were clear, traffic was chill, and according to a witness, he might have been enjoying a Harry Potter movie while cruising in his sleek Tesla Model S. A perfect day for a drive, or so it seemed. But just moments later, that ordinary ride turned fatal. On May 7, 2016, Joshua was driving down U.S. Highway 27 near Williston, Florida. His Tesla was in autopilot mode, which, despite what the name might suggest, isn't a fully self-driving system. It's more like cruise control with a techie glow-up. Still, with 37 minutes of autopilot engaged and only occasional steering nudges from Joshua, the car was mostly doing its thing, until it didn't. As an 18-wheel tractor-trailer began making a left turn across the highway, the Tesla, cruising at 74 miles per hour, failed to slow down. Neither the car nor the driver noticed the truck's white side blending into the sunlit sky. The Tesla didn't brake. Instead, it shot forward, right under the trailer. It was a type of crash called an underride. The top of the Tesla was sheared clean off, everything above the belt line destroyed. Joshua didn't survive. The car kept going for nearly 900 feet, finally stopping after plowing through 2 fences and smashing into a utility pole. The truck driver later said it all happened so fast, he didn't even see the Tesla before it blew through his trailer like a Wizarding Express. Strangely, the Harry Potter movie Joshua was allegedly watching was still playing inside the wreckage. Now, let's pause for a second. Was autopilot at fault, or was it just a tragic coincidence? According to Tesla, this was their first known autopilot-related fatality after over 130 million miles driven with the feature on. For perspective, they noted that in the US, there's typically 1 fatality for every 94 million miles driven. Still, just one crash like this was enough to get people seriously worried. The National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, NHTSA, jumped in and started digging. They found that the Tesla gave 13 hands-not-detected alerts before the crash, basically saying, "Yo, you still there?" Joshua responded, but often with a 16-second delay. Ultimately, they found no defects in the autopilot system itself, but made one thing very clear. Just because autopilot is on doesn't mean you can tune out. The driver is still in charge. The National Transportation Safety Board, NTSB, later concluded the crash was caused by a deadly combo, the truck driver failing to yield and Joshua's overtrust in autopilot. He didn't react in time because, well, he trusted the car too much, and to be fair, the car let him do that. Tesla's system allowed for long stretches of minimal interaction, basically enabling autopilot daydreaming, which turned out to be a fatal flaw. The aftermath of Joshua's death sent ripples through the auto industry. Tesla, regulators, and safety experts all took a hard look at how these systems were being used and misused. Tesla updated its autopilot features, making sure drivers are now nudged more often to stay engaged, and public awareness around the limits of self-driving tech has grown. While nothing can undo what happened to Joshua, his story became a wake-up call. It taught us that cool tech doesn't equal invincibility, and that a little overconfidence, especially behind the wheel, can be deadly. The silver lining? Tragedies like this have forced automakers and regulators to step up. Autopilot systems are smarter, safety standards are stricter, and people are finally asking the hard questions about what autonomous really means. Because in the end, even the smartest car still needs a fully present driver. It was a cool California morning on March the 23rd, 2018. The sun was rising, people were grabbing coffee, and 38-year-old Apple engineer Walter Huang was driving his Tesla Model X to work. It should have been a smooth ride down US Highway 101, something he'd probably done 100 times. But this drive would be his last. Just before 9:30 a.m., Walter's Tesla, in autopilot mode, veered left, straight into a narrow concrete barrier at the exit to Highway 85 in Mountain View. That might have been survivable except the crash attenuator, a kind of safety cushion meant to soften impacts, had already been damaged days before and never repaired. The Model X hit the barrier, got slammed by two other cars, and then caught fire. Walter was pulled from the wreck, but he didn't make it. The cause of death, blunt force trauma. And that's where things got messy. Turns out, autopilot had been running for almost 19 minutes before the crash. Walter's hands were on the wheel, but only for 34 seconds total. In the final 6 seconds, nada. The car was doing its thing, unwatched, unchecked, and heading toward disaster. Data showed that 7 seconds before the crash, the Tesla started steering left, mistaking road markings. Instead of following the correct line, it picked the wrong one, like a GPS from hell. At that moment, the car sped up to over 70 miles per hour and, with no obstacle detected, hit the unprotected barrier like a battering ram. But wait, it gets even more frustrating. The barrier Walter hit had been crushed in another crash on March 12th. Caltrans wasn't even told about it until March 20th. By then, Walter had only days left. The fix came 3 days too late, on March 26th after his death. Turns out, this barrier had been damaged more than any other in the entire Bay Area, and repairs were often delayed for weeks or even months. This was the traffic equivalent of a trapdoor. Even worse, Walter had reportedly complained before about his Tesla veering toward that very barrier while on autopilot. He knew something wasn't right, but like many drivers, he trusted the system a little too much. He might have also been playing a game on his phone at the time. Yup, reports say distraction from mobile gaming may have played a role too. So, what went wrong? According to the National Transportation Safety Board, NTSB, it was a deadly combo. Tesla's autopilot wasn't smart enough to handle that stretch of road. Walter put too much faith in it. The system didn't make sure he was paying attention, and the highway safety barrier that should have saved his life, not working. Tesla and federal investigators ended up in a public slap fight. Tesla released crash details quickly. NTSB was like, "Hey, that's our job," and booted Tesla from the investigation team. Elon Musk clapped back, basically saying, "We do what we want, safety first." In the end, the NTSB laid out several recommendations. Improve driver monitoring. Don't let autopilot operate where it's not designed to. Fix damaged barriers faster. And hey, maybe stop playing Candy Crush while doing 70 in a metal box. The Huang family sued Tesla, and in April 2024, Tesla quietly settled. But here's the thing, this tragic case sparked change. Tesla tightened how autopilot monitors driver attention. Road maintenance procedures got stricter, and regulators are now pushing harder for cars that truly watch the driver as much as the road. Walter's death was painful and preventable, but it didn't go unnoticed. Because every crash like this reminds us, technology isn't magic, and safety doesn't come from trusting a car. It comes from staying alert, fixing what's broken, and never, ever assuming the robot has it all figured out. It was late morning on May 29, 2020, just outside the peaceful town of Arendal, Norway. The sun was out, the roads were quiet, and a truck driver was just doing his job, pulling over to fix a strap that had come loose on his trailer. A quick stop, he probably thought. Just a few minutes on the shoulder of the E18 highway, then back on the road. But he never got back in the truck. As the driver stood next to his trailer, tightening the strap, a Tesla Model S, cruising north with autopilot engaged, exited a tunnel nearby and continued up the road. The driver of the Tesla noticed the truck partly blocking the right lane, but assumed it was abandoned. No warning triangle, no flashing lights, just a big, still object in the sun, and a man in its shadow. Then, bang, the Tesla slammed into the side of the trailer, and the impact killed the truck driver instantly. The Model S's windshield shattered. The Tesla driver pulled over and walked back, only to find the body. A routine drive had just turned into a tragic accident scene. The truck had been parked just 181 meters past the tunnel exit. The shoulder was narrow, too narrow, so the trailer stuck out into the right lane. That's a no-no on highways for a reason, but the trucker didn't report his stop to traffic control, and no other motorists called it in either. So when the Tesla rolled out of the tunnel, the system, and its human, had no idea what was waiting up ahead. Now, about that human. He claimed he had both hands on the wheel, said he was alert, but investigators confirmed autopilot was definitely on, and while he might have thought he was in control, the car and the moment were driving him. The shadow from the trailer made the truck driver harder to see. One expert testified that the Tesla's view, and the driver's, was likely compromised by that darkness. And let's not forget, the truck was partially blocking a live lane, and yet didn't have any of the required safety warnings in place. So who was at fault? The court decided the Tesla driver bore enough responsibility to be charged with negligent homicide. In December 2020, he was sentenced to 3 months in prison. But it wasn't just a case of bad driving. The Accident Investigation Board, Norway, dug deeper and found something else. The road itself was part of the problem. See, the company that built that stretch of highway, Norway AS, had originally planned for a wider 3-meter shoulder, which would have kept the truck completely out of the lane. But to save space, and probably money, they shrank it to 2 meters and promised to include safety mitigations. Spoiler alert, they didn't. So when tragedy struck, there was nowhere safe to pull over. No heads up from traffic control, no proper warnings, and a driver relying on technology that wasn't built to see everything. It was a perfect storm of human misjudgment, system limitations, and road design shortcuts. But here's the upside. The accident sparked action. The investigation prompted new scrutiny into shoulder width, roadside emergency procedures, and driver responsibility when using semi-autonomous systems. Norway, a leader in road safety, took the findings seriously, and it's led to improvements in highway design and enforcement of roadside safety protocols. As for Tesla, the case added pressure to improve how autopilot handles stationary objects, especially large ones parked where they shouldn't be. This wasn't just another accident, it was a wake-up call, because when it comes to mixing high-tech cars with human error, it only takes a second for something small, like a loose strap, to lead to something irreversible. Sunday, April 29, 2018. It was just before 3 p.m. on the Tomei Expressway in Kanagawa, Japan. The roads buzzed with weekend traffic, and on the far right lane, a group of motorcyclists had pulled over to help a fallen friend after a minor accident. Among them was a 44-year-old man, standing ahead of the group, trying to redirect traffic, keeping everyone else safe. He never saw it coming. A Tesla Model X, cruising up the expressway with autopilot engaged, didn't stop. It didn't slow. In fact, it accelerated from 24 to 38 kilometers per hour, from 15 to 24 miles per hour, as the vehicle ahead of it changed lanes. It wasn't dodging the hazard. It was simply resuming speed. Then, with nothing to intervene, it plowed into the parked van, the motorcycles, and the man standing in the lane. He died at the scene. What happened? The answer starts with the driver. He'd activated autopilot at 2:11 p.m., not long after joining the expressway. By 2:22 p.m., the system detected his hands on the wheel. Then, silence. At some point before the crash at 2:49 p.m., the driver fell asleep. As the car approached the site of the earlier motorcycle accident, a vehicle in front moved over to the left lane to avoid the parked group. Autopilot interpreted that as a green light. With no obstacles detected ahead, it began accelerating. The driver, asleep and disengaged, didn't react. Autopilot didn't either. Tragedy followed. The victim wasn't a careless jaywalker or an inattentive pedestrian. He was someone trying to help, someone doing everything right. But in the eyes of the Tesla, he was just another data point it failed to process. The aftermath was messy, legally, technically, and emotionally. Japanese courts convicted the driver of criminal negligence. He received a 3-year prison sentence, suspended for 5 years. a consequence but a lenient one, given the finality of what happened. Then came the lawsuit, filed not in Japan but in the US, where Tesla is based. The plaintiffs sued in a federal court in California in April 2020, claiming that autopilot was the real culprit. According to their complaint, Tesla's system had fatal flaws, no reliable way to detect inattentive drivers, and poor ability to handle emergency roadside scenarios, exactly the kind that real-world drivers routinely encounter. They also noted this was the first known pedestrian fatality involving autopilot. Tesla, in turn, argued the case should be heard in Japan. The California judge agreed and dismissed the suit for forum nonconvenience. The plaintiffs appealed, but in 2021, the Ninth Circuit upheld the dismissal. If the case was to be heard, it would have to be in Japan, and yet the questions lingered, far beyond courtrooms. Why didn't autopilot recognize the parked vehicles? Why did it accelerate toward danger? Why wasn't there an effective failsafe when the driver became unresponsive? This wasn't just a story about one man falling asleep at the wheel. It was a spotlight on the illusion of autonomy, how systems that appear smart can be blind, and how people, lulled by automation, can check out before the job is done. The Model X did what it was told. The driver didn't. The technology didn't compensate. And a man trying to help others died because of it. In the years since, Tesla has updated autopilot's capabilities. Driver monitoring systems have improved, though many say they still lag behind what's truly needed. But no software update can undo what happened that spring afternoon in Kanagawa. Autopilot may promise a hands-free future, but when a life is on the line, what's needed isn't just smarter tech. It's a system that knows when its driver is asleep, and a driver who knows better than to trust the wheel alone. On January 20th, 2016, Gao Yaning, a 23-year-old man, was driving a Tesla Model S along the far left lane of a multi-lane expressway in Handan, Hebei Province, China. Traffic flowed smoothly, until it didn't. A street sweeper truck was parked on the left shoulder, partially extending into the driving lane. The car in front of Gao moved over to avoid it. His Tesla didn't. There was no braking, no swerve, just a violent crash. The Model S plowed into the back of the truck. Gao was killed on impact. Dashcam footage later circulated in Chinese media showed the Tesla closing in on the stopped vehicle with no visible reaction from the driver. Gao's father believed his son was using autopilot. Tesla didn't confirm or deny it. In a statement, they said they had no way of knowing whether or not autopilot was engaged at the time of the crash, as telemetry data couldn't be retrieved remotely due to the damage. Still, Gao's family pursued the truth. In July 2016, they filed a lawsuit against the Tesla dealership that sold the car. Local police initially blamed Gao for the crash, but his family pushed back. Their lawyer explained that the case wasn't just about compensation, it was a warning. Self-driving technology has flaws. Tesla shouldn't market autopilot as a selling point for young people. The missing data remained a problem. Telemetry was stored on an SD card inside the car, inaccessible without Tesla's help. In 2018, the company provided a decoding key to a third party for independent review. Tesla stated, "While the third-party appraisal is not yet complete, we have no reason to believe autopilot ever functioned other than as designed." But then, a shift. Chinese media reported that Tesla had received the data and confirmed autopilot was active in the 2 minutes before the crash. Tesla responded quietly. The company removed the word autopilot from its Chinese website, a small but symbolic retreat. No court ever ruled autopilot was at fault, but serious questions lingered. Why didn't the system detect the stopped truck? Why didn't it slow or warn the driver? If the driver was unresponsive, shouldn't autopilot have disengaged? Tesla always said autopilot was an assistive feature, not a self-driving system. But for many users, especially young ones, it felt like more. The line between assistance and autonomy was blurred. Gao Yaning's crash made that line painfully clear. The truck didn't move. The Tesla didn't stop. The driver never reacted. The lawsuit eventually stalled. But the story remained a national cautionary tale, a reminder that even semi-autonomous systems can fail, and that marketing dreams of automation may carry deadly consequences. Honda didn't just lose a young man that day, it lost faith in a promise that the car of the future would know when to stop